So, you're going to go on a run pretty soon today, yeah?
Yeah.
What are you going to be working on?
I'm going to be working on endurance. We're going for 90 minutes, so our longest run of the week, probably 12 to 13 miles.
Your routine seems pretty dialed in. You've improved a lot from a 5K time of 20:01 freshman year to 15:33 senior year. You broke multiple school records and are on your way to running at a D1 college team. What would you say is your secret to your improvement?
I would say secret to my improvement is two things.
Mm-hmm.
Being consistent no matter what, and surrounding yourself with other consistent people. Because eventually it doesn't even take willpower for me to get out the door anymore. Everyone's just coming together after school or on the weekend, and it's just natural. So find a good group of people to run with and stick with it.
Nice. So the community aspect is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also lucky to have a great coach, which not all high schoolers have. So that's an advantage for sure.
Nice. What was your most recent big race?
Most recent big race was probably Nike Cross Regionals, and that was not a very good race for me. It was down in Idaho, very long trip. It was took us probably 8 hours to get down there.
Dang.
And we got down there pretty late, had some Olive Garden, then did our shakeout run after the Olive Garden at about 10 p.m. around the streets of Idaho, and then woke up the next day. We're all pretty tired, stayed up a little bit late, ran my race, and the course just destroyed me. There were some tough hills, but the hard part was really the sand. There's a part where you go on this sandy section, and that just killed my legs.
Dang.
Yeah, last big race was not a successful one.
The sand sort of just absorbs the impact, and so you can't really push off it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just sucks the energy out of you.
Do you have any recent accomplishments that you're looking back on? You're like, that was a good race.
Well, definitely, of course, my PR at Twilight. It was a nice course. It's still a little bit hilly, but the finish line is lower than the start line. So overall, you're actually losing elevation throughout the race, even though there's hills.
So you don't have to be working as hard.
Right. And there's some big downhills at the end, so that really carries you through the line. Other than that, I'd say, this year I made the all-state team, which is the top 50 times at state, which means for every school size, so including the smallest school sizes all the way up to 4A, that I ran one of the top 50 fastest times. I can't remember where it ranked, maybe 30 something, but yeah.
Would you say I imagine for the course, with the sand, there's a lot more variables, so you can't kind of prepare as easily for something like that, whereas this course seems like maybe more just comes down to more skill than anything.
There's definitely just different courses favor different types of runners, and I actually like hills. I'm not sure if the sand was particularly bad for me, or if I just wasn't mentally in it, able to handle it and tough it out, but I would definitely say I succeed on hilly courses generally, though.
Nice. Why is that, you think?
I think it's because of where I live. It's just everywhere we run, the hills are unavoidable. So every easy run, we're doing probably 500 to 800 feet of elevation gain throughout the run, and so we just naturally, even if it's easy runs, even though we'll do workouts on flat most of the time, those hilly easy runs and those hilly long runs really build up your strength throughout the whole summer and fall.
So the training directly reflects building that skill.
And we do run hills, but hill workouts, but not more than any other team, I don't think.
What are some races you pay particular attention to / training for?
Upcoming races?
Yeah, just ones that you, I know 5K is a pretty important one for you.
The distance?
Distance, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I would say 5K is probably my favorite event,
Hmm.
but since we're going into the springtime when 5K is not an event that's often run by high schoolers, focus on bringing the distance down and developing my speed so I can run a faster 800, 1600, and 3200.
Mm-hmm.
I would say my focus out of those three is probably 3200, but yeah, I'm trying to improve at all three.
Nice. And you're trying to improve the one that or what's your reasoning behind improving that one?
It's the closest thing to the 5K, which is my best event.
Your best meaning like you're the best at it?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And yeah, I also just think that training wise, like training for the longer event will prepare me for the shorter events, because when I run the 1600, I have the speed in the last lap to really kick very hard, but like I'm only running in the 420s, so if I'm trying to beat people that run like low 410s or even sub 410, I have to be, it doesn't matter how fast I can close in the last lap, I need to be there. So I need to have the fitness. I need to have the fitness to be within striking distance going into the last lap so I can actually show that speed. And I think that the training for the longer distances like the 3200 will give me the strength to stay right up on someone for the whole 3 laps before the kick.
Because the kick doesn't matter if you're not in a good position to
Right.
kick. Yeah.
And in general, yeah, I think like some people really imagine that like speed, like pure speed is the most important factor when it comes to kicking in a race, but I've found that it's really just overall fitness. So even if I can only run a 55 or a 56 on the 400 open, I can still close in 60 in a tactical race because I'm fit enough to be not very tired when we go into the last lap. So it's really whoever's in the best condition, in my opinion, not who could run the fastest 400 like on its own.
Yeah, okay. So I feel like a lot of noobs kind of get this wrong, where they're like, yeah, they only think, yeah, you just run the race as fast as you can. But from what I've heard from you and seen on the track is that there's a lot more strategy involved and a lot more thinking that goes into it. I'm curious what it's like pre-race, like what your mentality is going into it, like if you have like a little ritual beforehand, and then we'll get into more like mid-race and
I would say the ritual is just in my warm-up routine, so looks very similar every time we race. We jog for probably 15 to 20 minutes, then we'll do some dynamic stretching, do some strides, so run like, normally it's on the field because the track is being used like throughout the meet, so we'll do some like 80 to 100 meter strides on the field and get faster and faster throughout, and then once you're on the start line you just stay moving a little bit, and yeah.
And so you do that pretty much every time, so it kind of gets you in the right space to
Yeah, and also just the whole environment of the race, like, and just preparing, and like it kind of eventually your mind kind of understands like the stages of preparation, and once you're taking off your trainers, putting on your spikes, then like you just everything is just like building up to when the gun goes off.
Right.
And so once you're on the start line, you're basically just maintaining your readiness, because really you're totally ready when you get up there, and then sometimes the guy talks for a while or whatever, and so you just keeping moving and trying to look confident. Yeah.
How much would you say, how much thinking goes into that ritual? Like, was it just kind of what developed over time as you went to each race, or were you like, this is what gets me in the zone for each race?
It's kind of a combination. So we, like, when I was a freshman, for example, like it wasn't very like, it wasn't like an exact science or anything. Like I just kind of, like, I knew that we were supposed to jog a while for the warm up, so we jog around, and then like we do some dynamics, maybe not the same ones every time, and then switch into spikes eventually and do some strides, but it was not as exact. Now, like, it's still not perfectly exact because we'll change our, like, the distance that we jog based on, like, if it's really hot out, we won't warm up for as long.
Mm-hmm.
Because when it's cold, like, part of the warm up is literally like getting your body warm in general. So when it's really hot out, we actually shorten our warm up. Some people think that you should always warm up the same distance so that your body basically, like, is used to it, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
The goal should be to get the same amount warm.
Gotcha.
Rather than run the same amount.
So that your body's feeling the same, pretty much.
Yeah.
But you don't have like a special song that you listen to or anything right before?
Right. Sometimes I'm listening to music. I mean, really only like, I stop listening to music like 40 minutes before the race still, at least. So
yeah.
So it's not like directly like getting me in the zone, but yeah, it's nice like at a meet to kind of, rather than always watching the events and cheering people on and stuff, which can kind of tire you out. Like, I like to do that, but when I get closer to my race, like the 30 minutes probably before I warm up, sometimes I'll listen to music and lie down for a little bit.
Do you feel like the whole day almost is, like, there's parts of your day that are kind of getting set up for it?
Yeah. For sure. Because even, I mean, right before I actually go on my warm up, or a little bit before, I'll have some type of fuel. Like right now I've switched to, like, I was doing honey stingers for a while, like those honey stinger waffles for a while in the cross country season. I was having that, and I was having like coffee and sipping that throughout like the hour building, like before I warm up. And then I switched to this caffeinated gel that basically is just a way to get in the caffeine and the carbs in one go, and it's also like really easy on your digestive system, and it's a lot of caffeine, so it really gets you like.
And you did take that an hour before?
Like shaking on the line. Yeah, probably. I mean, maybe less. Maybe like 40 minutes to an hour before, probably like whatever, right before we start jogging, pretty much. And I'll have some water with a electrolyte mix in it that I'm like, if I time it perfectly, hopefully I'm like finishing that up as I'm getting ready, because we don't drink very much water within the hour probably before the race.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to be full of water as you're running. But the caffeine seems to have a positive effect on
definitely
your energy during the race. Yeah. How much would you say the very start of the race impacts the overall race? Like, you're thinking about position and where you want to be.
I would say it depends on the distance.
Yeah.
Because in a cross-country race, for example, like, the start is important, but, like, I have control over where I start, like, 100%. Like I cannot, like, I don't really have a problem of getting boxed in a cross-country race. Like, I can always get out pretty well and, like, navigate. Like, I'm very good in the first mile of a cross-country race. Even if the race overall doesn't go to plan, I'm good at executing the first mile and being where I need to be and conserving energy.
So you don't feel the pressure, like, immediately to get in front of somebody. It's like you've got a mile.
I mean, you gotta get like, in most races, like, I gotta get in front of 90% of the people
who are slower
immediately. Yeah. But then within those front, like, 20-ish, I'm not thinking like, that person's slower than me. Why are they ahead, and why? Like, I'm not thinking about the very specifics. I'm just kind of like trying to keep it steady, and then by the time I come through the mile.
And this is during what type of race?
A 5K, like cross country.
Right,
yeah.
That makes sense.
And by the time I come through the first mile, then just by like slowly letting people fade away, kind of, then I'll be like around where I want to be, like, which is pretty far up normally, like, top 3 or top 5 probably.
Do you think most people that are at your skill level, they don't really have a problem with starting positioning? Right.
I mean, at certain, well, actually, okay, so I would say I had like probably one race where the starting, like, the positioning at the beginning of the race was difficult to get to where I wanted to be, because I ran in the elite race at Hole in the Wall this year, and there were a ton of really fast guys, like, even from out of state and stuff, and like my 15:33 had me ranked like 30th or something crazy. So when we started, it was just so fast. And like naturally, like I mean, I went out really hard sprinting. I'm not full sprint, but like I was trying to get good positioning, but there was just so many people running so fast at the front, and we
just because it's like a really big race.
Yeah, and so they're really trying to get in positioning, not trying to get where I got stuck, basically.
Right.
And so I heard the announcer when they came to the first 400 meters. The announcer said they came through in 61 seconds, which is insane. Like my, how do I give that context? That's sub 4:10 per mile, and like that's what. Like I run 5-minute pace per mile, and overall on a 5K. So to try to start out in 61, like it's just only a few guys could have handled that. And
61.
So those are the guys.
What is that?
For the first 400 meters.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then that's what allowed them to get into position, but you weren't.
Right.
Yeah. What goes on in your head mid-race?
It really depends on the race.
Like 5K.
Okay, so in a 5K, honestly, my head is pretty clear for the first mile because it's very straightforward. It's almost like I almost don't even have to think about just like the routine of the way that I'm positioning myself and moving up and getting to where I want to be, and then probably for the rest of the race, the mind is not as quiet anymore, and part of that is like. Part of that is like, oh, this is getting tough, or part of that is like making actual tactical decisions that you didn't have to really make in the first mile. Other parts are like, I mean, sometimes after the first mile, you're like kind of coming back through the crowd, and you see people you know, or you see whatever. But I mean, often I miss them anyway. I'm just trying to stay focused, but sometimes the mind definitely gets a little bit scattered. You just have to pull it together if you start to drift off, or really focus in when you come to the last mile.
Yeah. Do you think, like, how much does your focus change when you, for example, feel like you're in a good position versus like, oh shoot, I might not.
Yeah, I would
place.
I would say when I'm in a bad position, like at state, when I kind of started to drift off the guys that I wanted to stay with, you definitely like you start to freak out a little bit, and you're like shit, like what, like am I getting caught by the guys behind me too, or like no, I gotta push forward and stay with those guys. And when I'm in a really good position, like just cruising right where I need to be, like even though it's really hard, like my mind is a lot quieter because there's nothing to, there's no decision to make. Like it's just stay there for now, like for the next mile or so. Like you're just staying where you need to be. So yeah.
So coming back to this strategy question, why do you think people are wrong when they say, "Oh, just run the race as fast as you can"? Like, yeah. Is it like more like you're playing on the psychology of the other racers too? So it's kind of where you are determines where they want to be, and so.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of every top like contender in the race.
Yeah. Like
the top 10 guys probably, they want the race to play out in a way that favors their strengths. So if there might be a guy in the race, let's say he has a PR that's 20 seconds faster than everyone else, and he just wants to go out really hard, just run the legs off of everybody, and then just be basically the last man standing.
So his strategy basically would be just to run as fast as he can.
But for some of us, like I know, like on that state course, I was not going to run like low 15s with those hills and with that mud. So for me, what I hope is that the race gets slowed down a little bit and it's kind of packed up, and then a mile to go, like we all start taking a crack at going to the lead, and then I'd just be the last one to try it.
Because you've got the kick.
Right. But that wasn't really what happened. It was more like the first scenario where one guy was a lot faster than everyone else, and so he just kind of like just push, and it wasn't so much the first mile, but after we came to the first mile, he just started really pushing. And so then, like, eventually it's like, okay, now it's just a group of 5. Now it's a group of him and one other guy, and then it's just him by himself. So, yeah.
So would you say when you're, like, playing to your strength, it's more about, you can run a better time when you have the kick? Or is it, like... Because I guess you're paying attention to the position of other racers, and like if you decided you were just gonna pick the strategy of just running as fast as you can, it would also change how other runners are running.
Right. And for me, it's just like if I tried to run just like all out from the gun as fast as I can, I maybe would run a faster time in some situations.
Yeah.
But the guys that are a little bit fitter than me, they're just going to be able to hold on, and it's just going to be a little bit easier of an effort for them, and then they're going to be able to blow by me in the last 800 meters.
And basically you doing that is giving them the motivation to push a little harder, essentially.
Yeah.
So you want to avoid giving them that motivation in a way.
Yeah. And so everyone's trying to make the race play into their hand, basically, and it also depends on the field, because there's races where I want to be a kicker, and there's races where, like, at leagues, let's say I think I had, like, my PR was, like, 30 seconds faster than the guy behind me, so that was more just, like, run my pace until he can't keep up anymore. It's not about kicking so it depends on the race, for sure.
What does it look like at the end of the race? Like, what's going through your head when you're in that kick phase? Or
how close to the end are we talking? Like, are we talking last mile or last, like, 400 meters? Yeah. Okay. Well, there's kind of different levels to kicking in the last phase of a race. Like, and really you start thinking about it like probably a full mile to go, and that's just like getting in position to conserve energy, sit behind these guys for the next like 1,000 meters probably. And then 600 to go, you start to be like, okay, I really need to be in position here. And then pretty much from 400 meters out to the finish line, you're kind of testing other people, making little gear changes, because you'd like to maybe like just totally break them, like over 100 meters to go.
You're like seeing if they have a little extra gear that they're so you like test them, and they switch a little bit, and you're like, okay, maybe
and sometimes you switch off, and sometimes you go to the lead, and they like push really hard to take the lead again, and then they're done, and then you go, or
because you had a little more in the tank.
There's lots of little scenarios. It's really a chess game in the last
that's so
400 meters.
Yeah.
And I got into interesting. So like at state, I ended up placing 7th, which was not what I wanted, but I had an interesting race with me and the 2 guys behind me, because since I was like, they were kind of where they should have been, I guess, in the race, whereas I felt like I wanted to be with the pack ahead, but I was just kept drifting off a little bit, and I was getting really difficult to keep up. And so the 2 guys behind me, like I never even let them take the lead, I don't think. I just wanted to like push them until they break, basically. And only one of the guys actually like fell off the pace, and then the other guy was like totally with me down the last hill.
So you were pushing as hard as you could, pretty much. Yeah.
The other guy was totally with me down the last hill, and then he like made a move and kicked a little bit, and then we both kind of got even with each other, and then we just sprinted it out. I barely beat him, but yeah.
Wow.
And that guy's like podium finisher in the 800 at state. So like he's very fast at shorter distances. I think it just proves like what I was saying, that it's not about your flat out speed that matters for your kick. It's about like just how overall fit you are. Because if me and that guy one day just decided to race from the top of that hill to the bottom, he'd smoke me. But after 3 miles of running as fast as we can, then I had the extra gear.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That brings me to I guess running improvement, and maybe what people get wrong about it. I know a big thing for you has been this idea of gap analysis. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I listened to a podcast that gave me some insight on how to basically set goals for the season. And one of the things it talked about was gap analysis, which is basically about finding what is between where you are and where you want to be. And so that's how I make a lot of my decisions training. I mean, my coach has a lot of control over over the way we train and stuff, but like sometimes I say like, oh, I want to get in this race, or like, okay, I want to run this distance this week or whatever in track. And so I use basically my idea of what is preventing me from being where I want to be to decide what I'm going to do. So, for example, when I say I'm like trying to get to 4:12 or 4:10 in the mile this year, and I want to be racing with those guys, and then I said like, for me, I think the best way to do that is to train more geared toward the 3,200, because it gives me the strength to be with them for the last lap. So that's understanding for me that my weakness, compared to those top guys in our state, is not in the last lap. Although my last lap is probably weaker than those guys, that's not where most of the gap is made up of. It's mostly in just the first 3 laps. Like, it's just not a pace that I'm like accustomed to, and it's not a pace that I have the fitness to go. And so we're working on stuff to get stronger and then be able to handle those paces.
Yeah, and this way of thinking about it, it's like a lot of people, when they're setting goals for their training and stuff, they don't have the same mindset. They're just kind of think of the solution before they even find the problem, right?
Right. And yeah, and the solution is often more complicated than you think, because even if I was, let's just say, keeping up with those top guys in the mile or the 1600 for the first 3 laps, and then I was just absolutely falling apart in the last lap, I could look at that and say, okay, my last lap is not very strong. My kick is the issue. Yeah. So I need to run workouts that focus on my closing speed.
Right.
But it's like, no, that's not the issue. It's the fact that when you got to 3 laps in, you were totally done.
You were tired, yeah.
Yeah. So it's more about overall fitness in that case. And there are people that do need to work on specifically drilling that last lap, where maybe they don't feel all that tired going to the last lap, but they just tactically, like, they let people overtake them, or they don't have that extra gear in the last 100 meters. Yeah, it really depends on the person.
Talk to me about, I guess, trajectory and what running will look like, you think, long term. Because I know, like, making running a career is kind of a difficult or interesting path. So I'm curious what your, I guess, vision for the future is.
Honestly, my vision is pretty planned out, like running wise. Just, I pretty much want to go through all these stages of a successful runner, moving up in distance throughout my career, all the way up probably to marathons at some point. Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, like, I just want to see what my body is capable of, and so I want to be running the distance that at my age is the one that I can be the best at. So like right now, it's probably shorter stuff on the track. When I get to college, it'll be 5K, it'll be 8K and 10K in cross country, and maybe even 10K on the track. And then as I come out of college, like, depending on how good I am at those shorter track races, I could continue with those, and then eventually start moving up. And I think even if I'm not able to make it my career or sign the pro deal, that I want to continue to, like, see what I'm capable of, because there's people that do train for those longer distances when they're out of the college running scene, and even if they're unsponsored. So yeah.
Do you think that's a trajectory for a lot of people where they're like distance runners, where as they grow older, some of those longer distances, like, why do you think those longer distances make more sense?
I think it's a combination of things. Like, when you look at most successful marathoners, they basically did, like, move up throughout their career. So, like, even like Eliud Kipchoge, when he was in his 20s, like, he was running like blistering 5Ks and 10Ks, and then just moving up, and then gets to the marathon. And the reason why I think people are better at the marathon when they're in their 30s is because a combination of the fact that they're losing some of the speed, some of that like true speed that they had,
so they can't keep up
when they were younger.
5K.
Right. It's that combined with the fact that now they've been running for probably 15 or 20 years, and so like overall their aerobic development is the highest it's ever been. And so they're going to be more fit for those longer distances than they would have been before.
That makes sense.
And yeah, I mean most non-runners, like, they probably don't understand that there's like aerobically, like, you can peak like 20 years probably into your running career, or even longer, even like maybe 25 years in, because it's just
still
about
get better,
right, and in longer and longer distances,
right.
Particularly, but because it's just like, I mean, think about how many miles you've put in once you've done 20 years of, let's say 20 years of like 3,000 miles a year maybe. I mean, I'm not on that high mileage right now, but you move up throughout your career, so like I don't know what the math is, but 60,000 miles, let's say, over the course of 20 years, like that's a lot.
Dang.
And just like the total time spent running, total time with the elevated heart rate, your heart and your lungs just so like you get really fit over the course of your career, and you also start to lose some of that speed you had before, so just naturally people move up and start to get better at the longer stuff.
It seems like it could be encouraging potentially for people who are starting running a little bit later.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, I can't, or maybe they don't have the ability to even run a fast 5K even if they train, because they're a little bit older. But maybe they still have a chance at getting better at some of those longer races. Like if you're like 30 or something, or like a late 20s, and you haven't been running, but there's still probably a good chance that you could get pretty good. Especially so like those elite marathoners, they tend to be in their 30s, but that doesn't mean that 30 has to be the prime. So like, for example, if you start running at 30, even though 35 might be like physically your body is maybe the most capable to run the marathon, you're still going to be probably faster at 40 than you were at 35 if you train those 10 years. Right.
Because then like that's a whole another half of your running career. So if you start late, you can definitely like improve and peak late, like peak old, including like in your early 40s. So
that's what I think is so cool. Like, I think a lot of people sort of see what age they're at as sort of the main factor that's blocking them from sort of their athletic aspirations, which I mean it does to a large degree, especially if you're trying to compete against younger people. But if you're just talking about your own potential as a person, especially if you haven't tried to reach your potential or the ceiling in your younger years, if you really dial in training and nutrition and overall lifestyle, like all the different things that would contribute to it, then you can just completely change where you are in like 5 or 10 years or whatever.
And even within, I mean, the 5 or 10 years is maybe like you peak, is when you're able to peak, like run your fastest time ever. But if you're training for your first marathon and you only take 6 months for that, you're going to be improving a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Do you think that you'll ever pursue, because I know social media is a way that a lot of runners make money. Does that seem like a reasonable thing to pursue? I know you've made some TikToks already. What are your thoughts on that as a path?
Yeah, it definitely interests me. I like creating content, but at the same time, I mean, it's easier certain times of the year, and I mean, like, I was doing it in summer, and like in the winter, like, I don't really know. I mean, I don't want to be like setting up my phone in the rain for super long for a workout or just different things like that, and even like the camera will get all blurry and stuff. But so it's hard for me to say like that's actually like a path I want to go down for sure.
Right.
but I do want to keep getting better at it, and I probably do still want to keep creating content, maybe more toward the track season when, like, I was doing the cross country season. The winter off season is probably like the hardest time of the year for that. But like in the spring, like even just videos other people take of me or stuff like that, like racing stuff is the most exciting. And so yeah, I'll probably pick that back up.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's for sure like a path for me of trying to make money.
To me, it seems like one of the best ways, and it sounds like other runners kind of have proved that it's one of the best ways to monetize your running career. But it's also like you have to like actually making the content.
Yeah.
Because it is basically, so it's work that you have to do. It's not just like just the running plus a little bit of this. It's like, no, the content is the thing that is big part of the work involved. Yeah. Let's see. How has your running philosophy changed over your career?
Do you mean like training philosophy or racing or like my whole purpose with running or what?
I guess I was thinking training and racing.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. I would say training wise, the thing that's sort of shifting this off season is our view of what an easy run means. And
because the easy runs are now a lot harder, maybe.
Not necessarily like they're not actually like super challenging, but it's just a matter of like not being lazy about it, basically. So like before, it's just like, okay, it's an easy day, and you just ignore your watch, you just run in the trail sometimes, like have fun, whatever. And I think that's a good approach for a lot of beginners because your body's basically so sensitive to the aerobic stimulus that you're going to improve really quickly no matter what. But now, like a couple of years into running, I feel like it's best for me to look at like what are the little ways that I can improve, and one of those things is like when you speed up the easy runs to a point where you are still recovering between your workouts, then like there's some aerobic gains to be made there for sure, especially in an off season where like winter off season where we're not like pushing crazy workouts every week, so we kind of have a higher threshold of like what pace we can go on an easy run and still be ready for the next workout, because it might be something easier, like more likely to be like some easier tempo stuff, or versus in season, like when you have a crazy hard workout and then a race, you gotta have some really easy days in between those. So
yeah, just so you can recover and be primed for the race. Yeah. What's some advice you would give to someone just starting out with running? I guess it depends on their goals, right? But
yeah, so if they're just starting out but they're really ambitious, like let's say I was just giving advice to myself when I started, where I was already like, even after freshman year I was already like, okay, I want to see how good I can get at this, like by the end of high school pretty much. So I already had that like pretty long-term vision, and of course, I mean, then my goal was like sub 16:30 or something, but or sub 4:30 in the mile or something, but I would say to someone just starting out, I mean, kind of what I was saying at the beginning, like just to get a solid group of people running, even if it's not a group, even if it's just one other person to run with, like just having that company, like it really helps on days where you're feeling a little bit less motivated. And yeah, I mean, that's the main thing. And then also just about like looking at the bigger picture whenever you have a bad race or anything that's getting in your way, an injury even, or like this winter I've dealt with a couple little things, and it's important for me to like, rather than being like, oh, like shoot, like I'm missing this long run or I'm missing this workout, how am I gonna be like my fitness is behind now. And that's true to some extent, but it's like I have to think like, okay, like I'm not trying to be good in 2 weeks, I'm trying to be good in like 4 or 5 months. So yeah, just looking at the big picture when you have bad races, and yeah, surround yourself with people you want to train with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, and last thing I want to touch on is what is it about running that you think a lot of people get wrong? Specifically, I'm thinking of things like foot pronation, for example, or like things that people commonly think, common misconceptions, I guess, about running.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say a common misconception is the way that runners improve. So I think a lot of people don't understand that even the best runners in the world, like, they're the best because obviously they have a lot of talent genetically, but also that they've been running for so many years, like probably like basically every day. And I mean, just the other day, like I was walking into school, there's a guy that like I had a class with a few years ago, and he was like, wait, Lucas, I have a question. How do you run so long without getting out of breath?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, it's pretty simple actually. Just run 6 days a week for 3 years, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
And so like people, I feel like that kind of like perfectly sums up what a lot of people's biggest misconception is, that there's like just the idea that there's some secret. I mean, like there's things that people don't understand about training. Like there's sort of like secrets, but stuff that every runner knows as far as improving with your training. But a lot of people they think we're doing something special when it's really like a lot of, I mean, it's just dirty work. Like it's just
running.
It's just getting out there every day. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Are you natty?
Yeah, so I do take electrolytes when I drink my water. So like I think that's still legal though. I use caffeine, which is legal. Sometimes I use those little nose strips to help you breathe better. I think those are still legal.
Yeah.
Got to check the rule book on that one.
Anything you want to leave the audience with?
Even if your biggest interest isn't distance running particularly, it's a good thing to look at in order to see basically examples of people who people like me, or even people that are a lot more successful than I am at what they do running wise, that like just the effects of picking something that you love, not picking something that you're good at, but just picking something that you love and then working at it consistently for years. It's like almost guaranteed results. And yeah, I think the key is like in the long term, like you might look at your skill set and see like the thing that you're maybe naturally skilled at, and you might want to pursue that. But it's like maybe that's the thing you could get best at in a year, but is that the thing you could get best at in 10 years? Because the thing that you can get the best at in 10 years is whatever you can stick to for 10 years.
Right.
So that's whatever you enjoy, really. Yeah. Because for me, like, I didn't step on a track and was like, oh, I'm good at this. I stepped on a track and I was like, oh,
this is fun.
Man, I suck, but this is fun.
Yeah, right.
Let's go. Like, yeah.
What's next for you as far as training and races? And I guess you're in the off season now. But
yeah.
you're
So
up on a season.
yeah. So we're kind of in the dead of the. I mean, this is probably the least exciting time of the year, running wise. I mean, we're doing some new thing. I mean, so off season we're running in like 50 to 55 miles per week range, and doing strength training. Next upcoming race is in like 3 weeks, so that should be exciting. In like, I think it's on February 10th at the UW, like the Dempsey indoor track, and race some other high schoolers. Everyone's in their off season, so it doesn't feel like that big a deal. But like, just it's a good way to test yourself in the middle of the off season, and
you get to see how hard people are actually training in the off season, right?
Yeah, and it's like 3 weeks before the actual start of the season, so it's like you could call it like a rust buster to start the season, but I more view it as like just like something to break up the off season, give you something to stay motivated for. So yeah,
nice.
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at this, and you can find me on TikTok at this username. I made a difficult edit for you there. But yeah, I post sometimes about my racing or about my training on my Instagram, and TikTok post a lot more like video style content. So yeah.
Sweet. Well, I'm excited to see where your running career goes from here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation. It was fun.
Cool.
Alrighty. Peace out, everyone.